Mr. Dawkins, you don't understand what science is.
Richard Dawkins, the maestro of evolutionary biology, flaunts his academic prowess with a zoology bachelor's degree and a doctorate in evolutionary biology from Oxford University. His extensive research on evolution, including the captivating theory of natural selection and the beguiling selfish gene concept, has garnered accolades and prestigious positions throughout his career. So unlike yourself, Kent, he isn't sat in front of a webcam scrambling for attention off anyone who'll give it to him. Please subscribe.
Science means knowledge.
Kent, it's quite clear that you're struggling with the concept of science. Science isn't about making ridiculous statements like dogs produce dogs and cows produce cows. No. Science is a fancy way of saying, let's use our brains, observe stuff, experiment, and come up with logical explanations for how the natural world works. It's like detective work, but with lab coats and test tubes. Now, here's a fun twist for you, Kent. Since you are so fond of demanding evidence for evolution, which, by the way, we provide all the time, let's mix things up a little bit. How about you dazzle us with your absolute best proof that God is the mastermind behind everything?
We know dogs produce dogs. We know that. We do not know dogs are related to mosquitoes and came from an amoeba and came from a dot. That's what you believe. That's your religion.
Now, I promise I haven't watched this video ahead of time. It's just that Kent is so pathetically predictable, it's not hard to guess what he's gonna say. Nobody is saying any of that, Kent. Evolution, in the context of biology, refers to the gradual change of heritable traits within populations of organisms over successive generations. The way you explain it is that we all think that one species just magically changed into another. Evolution occurs through mechanisms of genetic variation, natural selection, genetic drift, and gene flow. Now, over time, these processes lead to the emergence of new species and the modification of existing ones, as well as the development of complex biological structures and functions.
That's not science.
And neither is sitting in front of a webcam reading slides that haven't changed for 30 years. But it doesn't stop you.
Dawkins' writings champion one man, Charles Darwin. 1831, Darwin set out a 5-year journey around the world. You know why? Darwin couldn't get a job.
Are you this stupid in your day-to-day life, or do you save it up for when you hit the record button? It literally says it on the screen, Kent. Darwin embarked on a journey known as the HMS Beagle voyage to circumnavigate the globe from 1831 to 1836. The primary purpose of his expedition was to serve as a naturalist aboard the ship, collecting scientific observations and specimens from various regions around the world.
He graduated from, he was going to go to college to be a doctor. Nobody wanted him. So his dad sent him to theological school to be a preacher. Nobody wanted him. Couldn't get a job, so his dad got him an unpaid job as the naturalist. Go around and collect bugs and birds.
Well, I had no idea there were so many similarities between you and Charles Darwin. Matt left, your wife left, sorry, wives. But luckily for me, the person I'm in regular contact with who still works at Dinosaur Adventureland hasn't left yet. But based on the conversations we've had, I can't see them being there forever, which is probably for the best. I would hate for someone to spoil a perfect record for you, Ken.
He was a loser. Tell him I said so, okay?
Tell who? Darwin. You do know he's dead, Kent, don't you?
His travels took him to the Galapagos Islands off the coast of Ecuador. He cataloged a startling variety of plant and animal life. I agree. Found 14 kinds of finches, and they probably had a common ancestor called a finch.
Ah, so you agree that Darwin's finches is sound as far as what he was explaining about them then? So I've got to ask, if evolution isn't real, then why are there so many different kinds of finch? You do understand that you just agreed that birds evolved, don't you? Darwin's finches are a classical example of adaptive radiation. Their common ancestors arrived on the Galapagos Islands about 2 million years ago, and during the time that has passed, Darwin's finches have evolved into 15 recognized species, differing in body size, beak shape, song, and feeding behavior.
Today, naturalists estimate there are 30 million species of plants and animals. According to Darwin's theory, all creatures, large and small, are the end result of millions of years of natural selection. This is pure propaganda.
And this roughly translates to you don't like it because it's just one of the many ways in which we know that the Earth is a little bit older than 6,000 years. And that fact completely destroys everything you claim to believe and everything that puts money into your grubby little hands.
The reaction to Darwin's theory was explosive. Critics declared that Darwin had replaced Adam with an ape.
Well, there you go then. It seems like I'm right again. You don't like what Darwin said because it shows how impossible your belief is. And nobody replaced Adam, mainly on account of there being no Adam. All that happened is that Darwin's finches show us that evolution was and is still happening.
Atheists applauded. Benjamin Disraeli, the Prime Minister of England, summed up the debate at one time. He said, "The question is man an ape?"
Humans are classified as great apes within the taxonomic family Hominidae, along with chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, and orangutans. Humans belong to the subfamily Homininae. We share a common ancestor with the other great apes, and through the process of evolution, our species, Homo sapiens, has diverged from them over millions of years.
Today, controversy persists. Evolution is generally accepted.
And why is that, Ken? Could it possibly be because there are overwhelming amounts of evidence that support it? You know how you think the Bible is literal? Well, newsflash, it isn't, because there is not a single shred of evidence of any kind that supports God creating the earth in 6 days. And yet we are the ones who are wrong?
Dawkins says, living organisms are supremely improbable. They look as if they've been designed. Richard, maybe they were.
And if they were, Kent, then maybe there would be some evidence supporting that. But there isn't. Take this as an example, Kent. You look like a sweet old man. Maybe you are. Oh, wait, actually, that's a crap example. I must be slipping because there is so much evidence that shows us you're not. See how that works, Kent? For us to believe that something is factual, we need there to be evidence showing us that it's factual. Like the kind of evidence that supports evolution, of which we have plenty.
They're very, very complicated. But it all came from a rock, didn't it, Richard? Okay.
And there we go. I was wondering when you'd say that, Kent. It's one of your go-to comments, isn't it? Mainly because you have no clue what you're talking about when it comes to evolution and have to resort to putting words into the mouths of anyone who dares to call you wrong. Kent, I would have thought that a man of your age would have grown out of school playground tactics by now. What's your next comment going to be? That Richard Dawkins is a smelly poo-poo head?
He's a poo-poo head.
Where it's good at doing anything. So the fact that living things the fact that living things even are.
You all right there, Ken? You seem to be having a bit of trouble getting your big boy words out. Either that or you need to fire whoever writes your notes out for you. Or maybe check them first, you imbecile.
Mount Improbable is a metaphorical mountain. It's imaginary.
Brilliant. Thanks for clearing that up, Kent. And I know the creationists may struggle to understand fancy words like metaphorical, but we don't. And the fact that you felt the need to define metaphorical shows me that you know you're preaching to a bunch of... How can I say this without coming across as mean? You know that you're preaching to people who missed a few days of school? You included, because metaphorical means something used symbolically to represent something else, suggesting a comparison or a resemblance. Not made up, dickhead.
The height of that mountain stands for the very improbability. So on the top of the mountain, you can imagine perched the most complicated organ you can think of.
Oh, I played a complicated organ once. It had 4 keyboards.
It might be the human eye.
Ah, right, that type of organ. I was wondering why we were suddenly talking about musical instruments.
On one side, the mountain is a steep cliff, a steep vertical precipice. And you stand at the foot of the mountain and gaze up at this complicated thing at the heights, and you say, that couldn't have come about by chance. That's too improbable. And that's what is the meaning of the vertical slope. You could no more get that by sheer chance than you could leap from the bottom of the cliff to the top of the cliff in one fell swoop.
I've got a question that's been keeping me up at night. Have you ever wondered why your videos get fewer views than a snail's marathon? Well, I hate to break it to you, but all you're doing is playing the role of a human audiobook, reciting words that someone else wrote. It's about as exciting as watching paint dry. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Or should I say potty? Kent, you're either squeezing your cheeks so tightly that it's become your permanent poop face, or you're putting in some serious brain power to come up with your next earth-shattering statement. Whichever it is, I must say it's not the most flattering look for you, but fear not. I'm here to offer some advice. Please, for the sake of humanity's sanity, do better. Much, much better. Pretty please, with a cherry on top.
But if you go around the other side of the mountain, you find there's not a steep cliff at all. There's a slow, gradual gradient, a slow, gentle slope, and getting from the bottom of the mountain to the top is an easy walk. You just saunter up, putting one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. So he's saying we couldn't get the eye in a rapid jump, but if we go gradually, we can get an eye from a non-seeing spot of skin.
The evolution of the eye likely began with simple light-sensitive cells called photoreceptor cells that gradually developed in ancestral organisms. These cells were likely present in early multicellular organisms and provided the basic ability to detect changes in light. Now, over time, these light-sensitive cells became more complex, which explains Richard Dawkins' mountain slope analogy that you made really boring. But I, for one, look forward to you saying that eyes produce eyes, or that it is more likely that God gave them to us, which begs the question, if God is so good at making stuff like eyes, why do you and I both need to wear glasses to see? Was he just having a bad day when he gave us our eyes, or is it something else?
Waterberg said, provided you have 1 billion years to do it. Dawkins, you've got to have a long time. Richard, tell you what, give me your address. I'm going to get some of these for you. Okay, just for you, Dr. Dawkins. We will send you our pacifier set. One of them is time, the other one is more time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, very grown up, Kent. And thanks for showing us what we have all long suspected, that you're nothing more than a big whiny baby that throws his toys out of his pram when he can't refute something. Of course you don't like the fact it takes a very long time for things to evolve, because it shows how wrong your ideas about the origin of the universe and Earth are. Remember I asked earlier if Kent was gonna call Richard Dawkins a poo-poo head? Well, yeah, he may not have said the words, but what he just did with a pacifier is exactly the same thing. And it's funny because we call them dummies in the UK, which makes them even more relevant to Ken.
There's a whole series of small chance steps. Each eye along the slope is a little bit better than the one before. Is this observable science, or is he making this story up?
Oh no, he's not making it up, Kent. It's observable. Just watch this.
Look at this family. They look Asian.
But we are not from Asia.
They are from Europe. So why do they look Asian? After thousands of years, their body started to change and evolve. The human body built a skin layer around their eyes to protect them from the sun. That's why they look Asian.
It's called human evolution.
Do you want to take a crack at refuting that then, Ken?
In one of your earlier books, a very well-known book, The Selfish Gene, what does that mean?
Now, in this context, Dawkins used the term selfish metaphorically to explain how genes are the driving force behind evolution. The central idea of the selfish gene theory is that genes, the units of heredity, act on their own self-interest to ensure their own replication and survival. But now I really want to know what you think he means, Kent.
Before I go on, let me explain. Every Friday night, I've been doing a series on making babies. Mr. Dawkins, I challenge you to answer them. Explain how, step by step, the porcupine developed this wet method of making babies. I'd like to hear an answer.
Well, that's a series I'm really glad I had no idea existed. Kent, why do you keep addressing Richard Dawkins directly? Are you that deluded that you think he'll see your video? Well, it's not really much of a video, it's just you reading. And before any of you smarty pants say that I do exactly the same, yeah, I know. But we all know that Kent will see this video, and every other video I've ever made about him, on account of him being completely narcissistic. I bet there's somebody at Dinosaur Adventureland whose sole purpose is to Google Kent's name every day to see if anyone's talking about him.
Dawkins is absorbed with denying God. He cannot see he can't see his hand in front of his face.
Richard Dawkins is a prominent atheist, but to say that he's absorbed by denying God is not really true. His work demonstrates evolution in a way that doesn't require a God would be a more accurate way of describing him. Or is it just that your butt hurt again, Kent, because you can't refute anything Richard Dawkins says? Or at least you haven't in this video, apart from saying dogs produce dogs right at the beginning of your own video. You've made no effort at all to refute anything Dr. Dawkins is saying.
We can go on forever on Dawkins. Mr. Dawkins, I will debate you anytime.
Yeah, I wouldn't bother if I was you, Ken. Let's just say that this video of yours is you practicing in case you ever do get the chance to debate Dr. Richard Dawkins. All you would do is make yourself look like a dumbass. And I know that ship may have already sailed, but when it comes to a debate between an Oxford-educated doctor and an irrelevant has-been who got his title from a shack in the desert, I know who I put my money on. Thank you to all these lovely people who all hit the super thanks button on the last video. Melena C, Aardvark Steve 1, The Holy Kangaroo, Acid Crow, Citizen Gold, Liv Starchild and John Osmond.
You're all awesome.
If you can support what I do or want to, then all the ways in which you can help are linked below. Thank you all for watching again, and I'll see you next time. Love you, bye.
Alright, watch this next. But before you do, make sure you subscribe. By order of the Creaky Blinder.